Hi everyone. We're going to start. We don't have too much time. I'm Victor, CEO of Google Workshop, and I'm going to be here trying to moderate this talk about Agentic AI. I think this is pretty interesting because we are in different edges of the Agentic AI. For example, Kate is a startup focused on enterprise. Dago is an enterprise focused on Agentic AI, and I'm a startup focused on SMB. So it's the same technology being applied in different ways. So for start this talk, Kate, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Victor. Thanks for attending the session, guys. It's great to be here. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of a startup organization called AppFactor. What we've been building is an autonomous solution for software maintenance and modernization. So really what we're looking at is industrializing the process that engineers go through when they need to consistently and continually understand their application landscapes in the enterprise, but also move them forward and eradicate technical debt in a preventative way. So things like rewriting code bases, removing and remediating bugs, fixing vulnerabilities autonomously is what we've been building. So yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Hi. Oh, maybe this works better. There we go. Hi, my name is Dago. I work in Mutua Madrileña, which is one of the largest insurers here in Spain. We do a lot more than just insurance. We also get into investment. We're in mobility. You've probably seen Voltios around with all the car sharing and everything. The group is pretty big. It's like 72 companies or something like that. I lose track. And I work in the technology department under the CTO, and I'm the head of what we call processes, AI, and automation. And basically, my role right now is kind of define and push to have like a unified AI strategy, and trying to tackle all these new challenges because of AI, Agentic AI, and all the different verticals that come out of that. And as you said, Mutua is pretty much enterprise as it gets. And that's about it. That's an intro.
That's fine, thanks. I'm Victor, I also said. I'm founder of GuruSoup. GuruSoup is a software that enables one person to answer 1 million of messages of customer support, and we do this with Agentic AI. And now we are launching a second product because we realized a few weeks ago that answering this 1 million of messages, we were understanding what is happening in all the companies. We were understanding the business of the companies that work with us, and we are now launching a product that is called GuruSoup Brain. It's a brain that understands everything what happened in your company, and you can use it in some Agentic AI like Cloud Code or this kind of software. So we are done in this way. We can start to ask some questions that we were preparing. For example, Kate, can you share an example where AI in your company was stopped because the AI wasn't start to do better work than a person in some process?
Yeah, sure. I think hopefully the introduction gave a bit of background to what we've been building. Very, very complex challenge, certainly at scale within the enterprise, because often there's thousands of applications and they're all critical. We've been building something from the very start that is trying to provide a service internally that engineers can delegate tasks to that they would normally spend a lot of time, effort, and money trying to do manually, from creating documentation and actually maintaining that through to performing transformational tasks like rewriting a code base or just refactoring it to a newer version of the language. Now, we've obviously started to make some significant processes into that, where it's out, we've got customers using it, and clearly one of the challenges that we had is doing that in a very sort of place of governance and control and security, and we need to be respectful of the gates that enterprises will want to maintain, so they have control over things like cost and concerns about systems going off autonomously and making changes to systems. But I think for us, we've got to the position now, which is really quite exciting, where we're actually using the service ourselves. We're developers. We're building a product to solve a problem that we see ourselves. And our system is already documenting our own efforts as we move forward. So that's kind of where we've seen opportunities to, exponentially accelerate our own progress, our own capabilities through using the technology ourselves. It's quite an interesting dynamic, actually. I guess many companies don't necessarily get the chance to do that. But that's kind of where we've seen that starting to come into effect, is making sure that we've listened to customers, we're respectful of the constraints and the security concerns and the sort of clearance gates that need to be in place. And now we've got the controls in place to allow autonomous systems to take place within the confines and constraints that respect those concerns. So we're already there, and that's kind of what we're seeing as well, being adopted into the enterprise within those security constraints.
That's great. Now,
same question.
Same question.
I mean, in Mutua, I think it's been a very gradual process over time. It's obviously we're now going to the whole agentic AI, generative AI. We kind of boom in 2023 and all that. However, I mean, we've been using AI as in like machine learning and everything for like more than a decade or something in Mutua. And there are some things that it's always been better to do machine-wise, like especially like machine learning models to detect fraud or stuff like that. There is one very specific area that I think it's kind of transforming kind of organically. We've been automating processes for a long time. Everybody knows, RPA, like if you have SAP or something like that, which is a nightmare to program against, you use RPA because it's easier to just click on an interface and all that. And we've been doing that for a long time. The problem with that is, as everybody that writes code or anything, you have to be very exact. And then when you get to these tasks that are, let's call it semantically ambiguous, that kind of falls apart, because then you got to dispatch an email. How are you going to do that? Depending on what the address or the title or something, and everything just breaks. What we're seeing right now is that there's a lot of back office stuff and a lot of processes that are not automated because there's certain, as I said, semantic ambiguity, and that's where like our new generation of models, et cetera, the new generative AI, et cetera, is, in my opinion, is really shining. There are problems that you can solve by automating, but now you can solve automation that is semantically ambiguous, because now you have a model that can actually read an email and says, this seems like it goes into claims, or this goes into GDPR or something. And I'm just giving an example, but inside, I mean, imagine in insurance, the claims process is gigantic. It's huge, it's complex, it's both broad and deep. And there's a million different small processes in there. And there's actually some processes that are like, 20 years old, they can legally drink. And it's maybe somebody that literally grabs one paper, reads and says, that makes sense, signs it and puts it on the back. And now those kinds of processes, they can be done automatically in the back office. So all our new models of fraud, or with the new generation of like computer vision, because it used to be called that, to detect like, if your windshield's broken, if it needs to be replaced or repaired and everything. Those can be all made faster. Now we're also doing stuff with agentic platform with conversational agents. So maybe parts of our interaction with our customers can be better. That's something that we're actually exploring, all that. So, but I wouldn't say there's like a day where we kind of just woke up and said, oh my God, look at with AI we can do all of this. It's a very gradual process that we're seeing, and we're kind of changing this rhetoric inside Mutua. Like, I heard in the last talk, they were saying, no more POCs, let's go operational. But at the same time, for the past few years, we've gone very specific to use cases. We have a use case for AI. We have another use case for AI. We have a use case for AI. I call that's a joke, like going with a AI stickers and going around the company and just slapping it all over the place. Now we have AI here, and now we have AI there. And we're kind of reformulating that for this time and for our next strategic plan, which is 27, 29. We're kind of switching gears into more of like, let's redesign the entire process. Your enterprise process. Let's redesign it from the ground up. It's a new era. It's a new technology, and then with the new process, with 21st century eyes, we can then determine, what's AI, what's your regular script automation, what needs to have a person there because it's impossible to do with AI, or we don't want to. There's another question there that's kind of embedded, which is there are stuff that you can do with AI, but do you want to do it with AI? So I remember one. We had a demo for a company, and they were showing us about process and all that, and there was like payment, an agent to do the payment. I'm like, I am pretty sure I don't want anything AI there, because first it's like one of the simplest things. It's like a number and an API, a call, and that's about it. And another thing is like, yeah, you don't really want your payment system to start hallucinating and then start, paying, oh, hey, here's 3 million euros because, I missed a comma or a dot or a comma, something like that. So it's been very gradual, the process, but it's a very real, like, evolution of what's going on.
Yep. I like the way of thinking. I remember where we were building the first product that we launched. We did 4 pilots in these 3 years. And the first product was trying to not redefine the process, was trying to be faster the process. And we were helping customer support teams to be 7 times faster answering messages. And we were like, oh, this is great, the people is 7 times faster. But then we realized that we, using Agentic AI and killing the system that we built in the past, we can replace the whole, all the process, or the people in the process, that this process was like human in the loop, and this human in the loop was slower because of the human, not because of the loop. And what's great when we try to redefine all the process and we rethink all the product without thinking in the people, without thinking in how AI is going to solve this problem from scratch, without thinking what we learned in the past about how customer support is being solved in the 20 last years. That is one of the most common way of start to develop something and you realize that it's not the way. The way is recreate the process.
It's the faster horse.
Yeah.
I think it was Ford or something.
It's
that
not
said,
the car.
Right? It's like if I asked my customers what they wanted, they all would have said, "I want a faster horse," right? Instead
not
of
a car.
You build a car. It's like completely different. Yeah.
It is. Next question, Keith. What's overhyped in Agentic AI right now, and what's underhyped?
That was fun.
All right. So, look, I think we are all probably sat in this room and can appreciate that there is the word hype involved. But I think what we're also starting to see is that maybe it's led us to that position. There's a lot of real value and use cases that are being seen. I think the past conversation there about processes and having to sort of maybe reimagine those is actually very fitting for this, because for me, I think where there's been hype, especially within our domain, which is kind of software engineering, there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of progress. We've seen people that perhaps don't have an engineering background being able to build software much faster or frankly at all. However, within that, there's almost been a sense of ignorance in a way in terms of the processes that we have through software engineering and the life cycle that's required. And some of those perhaps are there to be reimagined, but at the same time, they're there for a reason. And in some cases, what we've seen is that a lot of processes that are there to ensure quality, ensure security, ensure governance, ensure that what we're actually shipping, because writing code is only one dimension of the problem. We actually have to build, we have to deploy, we have to test, we have to validate, we have to run, and we certainly have to maintain. And in some cases, what we've seen is that hype has really overlooked the principles of making sure that we're coherent with those concerns. So I think in some cases, we're right to reimagine, we're right to observe new technologies and the prospect of what that gives us for the future. But let's not lose sight of the fact that some of the processes we have are there certainly for a reason, and they shouldn't be ignored, because then we're into a territory where the hype factor really starts to overwhelm reality. So I think from our perspective, there's certainly been, from our perspective, the case where some of those processes have been ignored, and for me that's hype. We're very excited. It's allowing us to do things at scale, where there's a huge amount of context switching, problems that are there to be solved, like ours, very complex, and there's thousands of opportunities to do this at the same time. But at the same time, we have to be grounded and we have to be realistic about production and making things viable for sustainable use cases. Otherwise, it is all an experiment and it is all a POC. And in reality, what is that useful for? Because those processes, in principle, are there to validate something that we feel is appropriate for production. So everything's relative, and like I say, I think there's processes and governance in place for a reason, and we shouldn't ignore those when we're looking at AI, and that's how I would kind of address that hype factor. Sure.
That's great.
I agree with you like 100%. With and it's happened to me actually. Like I've seen certain pieces of the process or pieces of the puzzle, and I've gone like, oh my God, I just saw the light, and I just go and I make this plan of how we're going to automate this and how we're going to change this to this and et cetera and all that. Spend like a whole week doing that, and then I realized at the very end, like I talked to somebody like from the business side, they're like, oh yeah, no, but that's that because of regulation. Like there's a like the HESE requires us to do that in that format, sent to them by person, like hand to hand and all that. I'm like, okay, so should have asked that first and not waste a week of my time for that. But it's definitely a common issue. Just to make it a little different, I think I genuinely believe I'm like a tech freak. Like I've had my own data center in my office at home. Like
you're a tech freak. Yeah.
Like I've had like server blades that I buy, like old Pro lines and everything. And so like I'm not a Luddite, just as a context. And I do believe the most overhyped thing right now about Agentic AI is this whole human replacement theory. The whole thing about, oh, look, if I get a Claude Code license or something, I'm going to be able to have one person build the entire software of the company. I won't need software engineers. I won't need these people. And that's very unrealistic, to put it in a very appropriate language. I do believe that, and I know this is going to sound kind of cliche because every product that sells AI always has I'm guessing it's, at this point, it's like a legal disclaimer. This is not to replace people. This is to augment people. They're going to be able to do better everything. Then the tech landscape in the US fires 80,000 people, but they should have put them to do better stuff, right? But besides that, it's like, I think it's unrealistic to think that we're going to like completely replace like developers or et cetera. And sure, there are some processes where you have somebody that their job is to literally grab a paper, read it, and put the paper in box A or box B. Yes, that's probably going to be something that you automate, but that's something that you automated with RPA, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. But in reality, I think with the whole market, especially with developers, because I think that's like the most, the most that comes out in the news. Software developers dead. NVIDIA was saying, don't let your kids learn to program or something like that. A warning. And at the end, what's going to happen is, yes, you'll have one developer that's going to do better. So you fire all these three, and now this guy gets burned out. Another company, your competitor, is going to go and say, oh, look, so I'll have all 4 developers, and I'll put the same augmentation to all of them. Now this company is going to do more than this other company. Yep. This company is going to be, in the short term, is going to be better because then the quarter earnings calls or something like that are going to be, oh, look, our costs went down. Then they rehire, and then they refire, and they play the game, right? But then this other company is going to have, okay, I'll just hire the people that you let go. I'll put the AI on them. They're going to augment them. They're going to build more.
Yep.
And that's going to be the main threat to incumbents. That's going to be your new Google. That's going to be your new Microsoft. That's going to be your new stuff. These people are they're going to decide I can do more, period, and not cost me anything that much. We also are, right now we're looking at this whole token maxing bubble exploding in real time because, you had companies doing leaderboards like, oh my God, you have to burn billions of tokens a year or you're fired. And now that they're changing how they're being paid and how they're charging and all the business models are changing, companies are actually calculating how much that leaderboard is going to cost them. They're like, oh, look, it's going to cost us $250 million. yeah, we're going to go bankrupt in less than a year. So now that's happening. So the whole human replacement theory with AI, I think is way overhyped right now.
Agreed.
And underhyped, I think it's actually very simple, small agents that are doing back office stuff. I think it's going to be a little like Linux. Like everybody, like in the early 2000s, oh, this is the year of Linux, right? Linux this, and I was part of that. And we never realized that the war was won. 90-something% of the world's compute is Linux. It's just in the data centers. It's not at home. So we kind of missed that on the side. And it's going to be the same. I think the huge proliferation of agents or agentic AI or something, it's going to be back office processes. They're not going to be chatbots. They're not going to be something that your client's interacting to. Yes, you will have your chatbots. Yes, you will have your agent in the call center. Yes, you will have all of that. But it's going to be 3 versus 3,000 processes in the back office, microservices, et cetera, that are going to be solving semantically ambiguous stuff. And I think that's actually something that's pretty underhyped. Same with like vector databases, it's actually one of the most transformative things of this new age, for me at least, because it gives you an entire new dimension of search.
Yeah, that's great.
Nice. And I'm going to cut off because I will the rest of the time.
In my opinion, continuing something the things that you say, thinking about overhype, I'm going to be a little bit controversial, and I think the people is talking about AI is expensive, and maybe there are some companies that spend
useless AI is expensive.
Useless AI is expensive. But for example, in our point of view, we are answering customer service messages 10 times less than the cost of a person. So if you use it in the right way, you are going to spend too much less money than you are doing this way. So now all the people is trying to do to spend less money and trying to be using AI cheaper than clever, and I think that this is one of the most of the things that the people are talking and are in the wrong direction for me. Yeah. And talking about underhype, I think that you say in this way, company brains are the next thing. Because of this, we are going to pivot to try to bring company brains to the companies, because the agents doesn't know how to solve the problem. All the CEOs of companies say to all the workers, use AI. They use AI. They don't know how to use AI. They don't bring the information to the AI to do the things right. And the company brain is going to bring this knowledge to the agent to do or achieve one task. So for me, this is the next big thing. We have 3 minutes. Last question. What is the next bottleneck that you see in the next 12 months? Okay.
Sorry, Victor.
What's the next bottleneck that you see in the next 12 months?
Well, I think Diego's just mentioned it, frankly. I think we're right at the cusp of this interesting dynamic where there's been a very big push. There's been encouragement around consumption of AI, exponentially. And I think the reality is that the cost issue clearly is a constraint, and it's a consideration that's exploding right now. And I think that clearly isn't the end of the story, because what we're also seeing, I'm sure you have as well, is a lot of agentic solutions that you're using across various different domains having to constantly evolve and change their pricing structure. I don't think anyone's really got that right. There's obviously the growing capabilities of open models, which changes that dynamic potentially and has a lot of promise in terms of cost and capability and sovereignty as well. And then obviously you've got a lot of the premium models which are also changing the way that they're structuring costs to try and, frankly, realize value themselves. So I think for me, the bottleneck that we're right on the cusp of seeing right now, which is going to evolve, is definitely about cost. And I think all the things that we've talked about today in terms of perhaps trying to reimagine processes, redefine processes, factors into those costs. You mentioned something just now, Victor, about people using AI the right way. Well, that's helping to shape how we define the right way. And some of that is really based on what we feel is appropriate for cost and how we control those costs. And I think we're at the very start, of course, from not just from a economic perspective, but also from a security perspective about how much of the chain we let go of in terms of automation and the controls that we need in place to be able to be safe with those things, be it cost or be it security, be it data privacy, sovereignty, all of these things. So I think it's all very much part of the puzzle. But I think for sure right now it's cost is probably the thing that's on everyone's mind, especially when we're thinking about letting things go autonomously. How can we actually have control over things like cost? So I think that's really what we're seeing right now.
Fine.
I agree basically because cost eventually is what decides what your business case, if it makes sense or not. If the cost of AI goes really high, it's just going to kill your projects. I would say that at least on this side of the ocean, governance, internal audits, external audits, regulation, etc. And I don't mean it as a bad way. I don't mean like they shouldn't exist. And I'm going to go like way on the left side here. But what happens is when we start building stuff really, really fast, we end up cutting corners. And sometimes the whole audit trail, governance, et cetera, is what gets left behind on the cutting floor. And then when you have to put it in production and rewire it to the regulation, then it becomes a kind of a problem. So in our case, what we're doing is we're building a new operational AI platform from scratch with all of that baked in right from the start, like governance, auditing, GDPR, et cetera, so that it doesn't become a bottleneck later on.
Yeah.
And
10 seconds. For me, companies have AI, have money, have problems, but they don't know how to solve it. So they need to understand how AI can bring value to their companies. So this is for me the next bottleneck. It's done. Thank you all for being here hearing us. Thank you, Kate, for coming from London. Dago, see you.
Thank you.